This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of Know-How is brought to you by SmartThings. SmartThings lets you monitor, control, and secure your home from wherever you are using your smartphone. Right now, SmartThings is offering Know-How listeners 10% off any featured SmartThings kit and free shipping in the United States when you go to smartthings.com/knowhow and use the offer code KNOWHOW at checkout. And by lynda.com, the online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills. For a free 10-day trial, visit lynda.com/knowhow. That's LYNDA.com/knowhow. Today on Know-How,
we've got a month of cooling.
We're keeping you up with the Hobby King BeerLift build.
And the TrackingPoint hack from BlackHat.
Welcome to Know-How. It's the Twitch show where we build, bend, break, and upgrade. I'm Father Robert Ballecer.
And I'm Bryan Burnett.
And for the next hour or so, we're going to let you into some of the projects that we've been geeking out to so you can take them home and geek out on your own. But before we get started, hey, Bryan.
What's that?
You know, we got an audience today.
We do have an audience today.
Yeah, in fact, we have perhaps one of our youngest fans. That's Elliot right there. And his father, I'm sorry, I forgot your name? And Steve, that's Elliot and Steve.
From Boston.
They've come to us from Boston to say hello to the Know-How audience.
Just to come see this show.
Just for this show. In fact, they were here earlier at TNT, and they're like, no, we don't know.
Yeah, they were just here to, you know, make them feel better.
So,
but really, they're here for this.
Yeah, that's what the real fans do, folks. That's right. But before we get into some of the action, because we are kicking off our month of cooling. We promised this for a while. We understand that in many parts of the world,
it is quite hot right now.
It's quite hot. In fact, it was the hottest July in recorded history.
Yeah.
August ain't shaping up to be a whole lot better.
That's right.
So what we wanted to do was to give people 4 consecutive weeks of builds that they can actually do that might provide them some relief.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
Fingers crossed. We're going to start with something really, really easy, something that everyone can build, and then as each week progresses,
and then ramp it up.
We'll get a little crazier.
And what is the danger factor of any of these?
Well, my superior actually approached me over the weekend and was concerned that I would electrocute myself, and actually he was probably right. One of my mock-up builds was not really well insulated. It had a lot of battery power flowing through it. But yeah.
Hey, that's part of the fun. Let's see if we make it.
Science.
Science. Science, I hope.
But actually, let's talk a little bit about science, because when people think of cooling, what do they automatically think of?
Fans?
Fans, probably, but you know, if you go high-end.
Oh, like an AC system or something? Like when we were in Vegas for DEF CON and BlackHat?
Well, when it's 116 degrees, you probably need a little bit of cooling to not die.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize is that it's actually better just to keep it going, I guess? Like keep the AC going instead of turning it off and on?
This is something I actually learned from my data center days, which is a lot of times you think you just get the biggest air conditioner that you can get because, well, it's better that way, right?
Right, bigger's better.
Not really. Most modern air conditioners will actually work better on a continuous cycle. So if you have got such a big air conditioner that it runs for 20 minutes and shuts off for 20 minutes, runs for 20 minutes, shuts off for 20 minutes, that's actually ridiculously inefficient. You want something that will stay on its duty cycle. So you want to appropriately size your air conditioner. But that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk a little bit about what actually makes an air conditioner work. Not an air cooler, but an air conditioner.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, now, when we talk about air conditioning, we're talking about really it's a two-stage process. You've got something that takes away heat, and you've got something that sucks in heat.
Right.
Right. So that's the easiest way to think of air conditioning. But if we talk about air conditioning, we have to talk about heat. What do you think heat is? When you feel heat, what do you think is happening?
Just energy trapped, I guess.
That's it. Yeah, energy transfer. Heat is just energy transfer. So, for example, if hold out your hand.
Okay.
So if we do this, does your hand feel hot, or does my hand feel hot?
Your hand feels hot, yeah.
I mean, my hand feels hot. Your hand actually feels cold. And the reason why that's happening is because my hand is actually warmer than your hand because, of course, you're a reptile. And heat is transferring, energy is transferring from my hand into your hand. That's what heat wants to do. That's what energy wants to do. It wants maximum entropy.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So if I have a given container, just give me a system, at some point, there will be an equal distribution of energy within all the molecules, all the atoms of that system. That's just what wants to happen. That's the natural heat death of the universe.
That's physics.
Right. You have a lot of heat in one place, very little heat in another. It will eventually spread out so it's all uniform.
Right.
All right. Now they're actually using that in air conditioning. If we have a fan that's blowing in our face and it feels cold, that's because the air that's blowing into our face has a lower energy level than the molecules in our face, and the heat is actually being transferred from our bodies into that air. That's why you feel cold. Conversely, if you have air blowing into your face and it feels hot, it's because the air is warmer than the molecules in your face, and energy transfers into your face from that air, from that system of liquid blowing past you.
Okay, and we definitely don't want that for this cooling system.
Oh, no, but it's good to know that they're actually related, because all heat and cold really is that transfer of energy. And that's why if our hands were to be the exact same temperature, even if our hands happen to be 100 degrees,
right,
and we touched each other's hands, you wouldn't feel anything, because they're the same temperature. Of course, that would never happen because,
well, considering I'm a reptile man,
and I'm way hotter than you,
so
yeah. But that's something. That's a principle that we're going to take advantage of.
Okay.
Now let's take a look at this. This is what really poorly drawn air conditioner
I thought it was a
like.
diagram of a bomb.
And just make sure to cut this one.
Yeah, that's right.
You'll die. I had some slides I created for this, and they're sitting on my computer at home, so we're going to go with my really poorly drawn.
Oh, yeah, I did that too. I had so many slides to bring in
today.
what?
I'm going to bring them next time.
Tibbs ate them.
But okay, so this is what an air conditioner looks like. It's got 4 basic parts. You've got a compressor, and all a compressor does is it compresses gas.
Right, so it's pulling in air and compressing it?
Right, but this is a closed system. So it's going to be taking the gas in the system and it's going to be compressing it into a smaller volume.
Okay.
Right. Then you have this. This is the heat exchange coil. Now, the idea behind this is as air gets compressed or gas gets compressed, it's actually going to heat up. And the reason for that is what we just talked about. If I have, say, this X volume of gas, and it has a certain amount of energy.
Right.
And I compress it, so now it's in X divided by 2. It's half the volume, right?
Right.
It still has the same amount of energy because it's still the same gas.
But it's in a smaller...
It's in a smaller container, which means it's actually going to be hotter. It's, per cubic centimeter of that volume, there's going to be more energy. There's going to be more heat.
Right.
Right. So if I compress a gas, I'm going to make it much hotter. I need to get rid of that heat. And the way I'm going to get rid of it is I'm going to run it through this coil that is in this one system. And all of that heat is going to want to dissipate from the gas.
Right.
Okay. So now I've just taken gas, I've compressed it, now I've cooled it down. Now I get to this. This is an expansion valve. This is the opposite of the compressor. So let's say I have X volume, all right, and it has a certain amount of energy in it. I expand it to 2X. It still has the same amount of energy, but because it's now a larger volume,
it's cooling down.
It's cooler. In fact, way cooler. Have you ever taken a bottle of compressed air, turned it upside down, and squeeze the trigger, right?
Yes.
It feels really cool.
Yes,
we love
cool.
doing that.
Almost too cool. Like you get a freezer burn.
You get a freezer burn. But even if you don't turn it upside down, when you use a can of compressed air, you're going to notice
it gets very cold.
It gets cold. And the reason why it's getting cold is because you have all that expanding gas, and all that expanding gas is incredibly cold. It's going to pull in the heat from the surrounding system.
Okay.
Makes the can cold, right?
That makes sense.
Same thing here. I'm expanding the gas, so the gas is going to get really, really cold. So for example, let's say over here, let's say I have gas at 50 degrees. Right? Now I'm going to compress it so it's in half of its original volume. It's now 100 degrees.
Right.
Okay? I run it through this coil so it gets back down to 50 degrees.
And then as you let it expand, it'll drop
to 25 degrees. 25. Right, exactly. Now I've got that ultra cold air. I run it through another set of coils. This is where I blow the air through.
Okay, so you have like fans.
I have fans in here. And because that gas is at 25 degrees, it's going to absorb the heat from the air that I'm blowing past it. So now it gets back up to 50 degrees. I recompress it, it's 100 degrees. I cool it off, it's 50 degrees. I cool, and then I expand it so it's 25 degrees, and I just go through it over and over again.
And you just keep cycling the air in the wherever, like I guess your house. Or
right, and because this is a closed system, this is what we consider air conditioning. It's a nice, efficient closed system. This gas that I'm compressing and expanding, it doesn't leak out. I'm just constantly, I'm pouring energy into it to move heat from one side, one system to another.
And what is the gas? Don't they use like Freon or something?
We
in
used to
cars?
use Freon, but Freon is incredibly bad for the environment. So I mean, we have different gases will have different abilities to absorb heat.
Okay.
And so you want a gas that absorbs a lot of heat, but you don't want it to turn into a solid when you cool it off. So yeah, it's a material science thing. It's a gas science. Something I should note about this is air conditioning, even though it's great in that it gives us cold air, it's actually adding energy to the system because I'm pumping energy into this thing
to compress the air.
To compress, and it's thermodynamics. If I had both stages in the same area, so like I had both the heating coil and the cooling coil in the same room, the room would actually get hotter over time.
Okay.
I would get that initial burst of cold air,
And then-
but I'm actually venting more heat through the cooling coil.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why you have the hot stage outside of your house and you have the cool stage on the inside. You're actually making the outside hotter to make the inside cooler.
Who cares about the outside
I don't live
at
out
that
there.
point? Yeah, I want my box to be cool.
Yeah, but I mean, that's air conditioning.
Okay.
So when we talk about air conditioning, that's super simplified, by the way, because it actually, you can get really crazy here. In fact, if you
It's
want,
feeling a little chilly in here right now.
yeah, well, if you want to get more knowledge about this, just look up the ideal gas law. And the ideal gas law will show you what kind of math you have to do to figure out how hot and how cold something's going to get from the compression and expansion of gas.
Okay, and is that the cooling process is why you get condensation on things?
Right, yeah, because this is going to get so cold, it's actually going to bring it down below the, there we go, down below the dew point of water, that's water vapor in the air. That's also why air conditioners act as really good dehumidifiers, because when the air hits this coil, if there's any moisture in it, it will just want to condense.
Okay, because yeah, that's what the problem we had at the studio a few weeks ago was that the air conditioner froze.
It's because Burke's living in the server room. And
It's all that moisture is going. He did look a little dry.
He did, right? Yeah, go figure that. Anyways, we bring all this up because we're not doing that.
No,
we're not. Yeah, I actually created an air conditioner, but we're not building it because it's 3 times more expensive than a far better air conditioner you could buy at the store. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe.
But we want to know the core concepts. Yeah.
That's the core concept. We're actually going to be doing something like this because this is just heat exchange. We are going to be showing people builds that will do heat exchange, just not in a closed system. There is no continuous loop of gas. Essentially, all we're doing is transferring heat from something that's very hot to something, for something that we want cool to something that's going to become very hot.
So these probably won't be like super efficient.
No.
No.
No, not even. No.
No, but these are, at least you can do it yourself kind of thing, right? And if you don't have access to an air conditioner in a small area, you could use these, right?
Exactly. And that's why the first build is...
a bucket?
You've seen this before. This is a swamp cooler that we're going to be building. It's super inefficient. I mean, I kind of gristled to make this because it is so really inefficient to make one of these. But the nice thing is, if you have access to ice or anything that's frozen, this can be an immediate cooler. So if you need something in a pinch, something that's super cheap, in fact, if you're probably going to have most of the parts that you need for this thing at home.
Just laying around.
Just laying around, like the fan, the liner, the drills, all that stuff you'll probably already have. So you really don't have to buy this foam liner, and you can make yourself some heat relief. Now this is... Ooh, get out there. This is really just a 5-gallon bucket that we got from Home Depot, and this is a liner that's designed for 5-gallon buckets. And the reason why we want this is because we're already going to be dealing with some major inefficiencies. We don't want the container to be another one.
Can we just make this into a coffee cup? It looks like a giant coffee cup.
Now that you mention it, don't tell Leo, he will drink out of it. Just on a dare. But so we need this. This I think cost about like $6.
Okay.
The bucket, if you go down to Home Depot, you can get one of these for like $3 to $4. Then you're going to need a couple other pieces. You're going to need some venting material because we want to be able to direct the airflow that's going to eventually come out of this. You're going to need some sort of fan. Now, you can buy a fan. In fact, I have a link there for, it's a Honeywell Turbo Force fan. This thing is actually really, really nice.
Turbo Force?
Yeah,
I like the name of that.
$25. You get a lot of airflow out of it, but I've also used cooling fans from my old PC builds. I got a 120 millimeter fan.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, I'll get it later. 125 millimeter fan, and the nice thing about that is I can make it portable. I can make it battery powered.
Okay.
You're also going to need a couple of tools. You'll want a cutting tool. The ideal would be is if you have a drill with like a 2.5 inch with a hole saw on it. That would be nice. But if you don't, I used a Dremel tool on this, and I used the iFixit X-Acto knife.
Okay.
So you don't need a whole lot. So container, some sort of insulator, some sort of vent, some sort of fan, and then tools to cut through everything. If you can find that, you can make one of these. So without further ado, hey Alex, let's go ahead and show them how to cool off.
We start our simple air cooler build by marking the outline of our fan in the lid of the foam liner. We're going to make a cutout to allow airflow from the fan to enter the bucket. If possible, mark the inside diameter of the fan because we need the hole to be slightly smaller than the fan housing or we risk the fan falling into the bucket. Next, mark the sides of the bucket where you'll be cutting your outlets and inserting your flow vents. Your flow vents can be any material that can direct the flow of air from the outlets. In our case, I'm using some tennis ball cans that I scavenged from a dumpster. I cut the ends off the can and made myself flow vents that have smooth metal rings on the outside and the ability to cap a vent to increase pressure on the remaining outlet. Sure, you could buy some 2.5 inch PVC pipe, but the whole idea of this project is to make it on the cheap. With your inlet and outlet marked, let's get cutting. I used a Dremel tool to cut through the side of the bucket and a X-Acto knife to cut through the foam. Err on the side of making the cutouts too small. You can always remove material, but if you remove too much, you'll have to use tape to fix your cut. Test fit your fan and flow vents. If they fit, go ahead and insert the foam liner and cap into the bucket. Using an X-Acto knife, cut holes in the foam liner that match the holes you already cut in your bucket. I prefer to make my outlet cuts slightly smaller than the bucket cuts because I want the extra tension to hold the flow vents in place. Attach your fan. I prefer to secure the fan with a set of zip ties, though you can forego this step if you don't plan for your cooler to be boardable. Also, you can use glue, sealant, or tape to close up the gaps between the container and the flow vents or fan, though I suggest bypassing that step out of pure laziness. With the bucket cooler assembled, let's test it out. Partly fill the foam cooler with ice or frozen water bottles. I suggest using frozen water bottles to keep loose fluid to a minimum, but any sort of cooling media will work. Place the lid on the foam cooler and seal the lid of the bucket. Power up the fan and you should start to feel airflow from the vents. Congratulations, you just made a hella cheap, totally ghetto, ridiculously inefficient air cooler.
That's how I like to describe my projects.
Let me stress again, this is fantastically inefficient because you're actually using up energy in your freezer to freeze water, and then you put it in here. Now this is actually the portable version. So this is hooked up to one of my Quadcopter batteries. I was going to hook it up to one of the 4S batteries just to see how
fast that fan will go.
Right, but this actually works pretty well. So there's 3 frozen bottles in here. I could also use ice. If you live in a really dry climate, actually it would probably be better to use loose ice because you'll get evaporative cooling in addition to just blowing over the water bottles. Okay. Now, something you should know about this is just one step up from the old ghetto way of cooling, which was you put a big fan and like a block of ice in front of it.
Pretty much it.
This is basically the same thing with a tiny bit more finesse. We are getting airflow out of this, nowhere near what we got when we were using the Vornado clone, the Honeywell.
Yeah, I wish you had hooked up a 4S battery to that.
You just to really push them.
Just to see how fast that fan would go.
Well, I mean, okay, let's do this. Let's go ahead and disconnect this. See, I made this system is super advanced. I made it with interchangeable fans, right?
I mean, you thought ahead on this.
This is like high tech. This is crazy. I mean,
I know we're making fun of this, but I could totally see someone living at their house where they have a fridge, but where they keep their computer, where they sit at their desk, is really hot.
Are you kidding me? We're going to use this downstairs. The no hole always always gets too hot.
It does get too hot. Can we use this for the TriCaster room? Should we just keep all of Twit cool on this sort of thing?
So yeah, if I do that, now now I start to get some serious airflow.
Whoa. Whoa, look at the streamers go. Are we all? Oh, we're on 3. Okay, we're at full power.
Actually, what's happening now is there's actually not enough vent space. I've actually got airflow that's backing up because it can't exit the system that
too
quickly.
Powerful.
Right. Also, remember, the more air you push through it, the more you're going to melt.
Right,
Yes.
the faster that it's going to...
Now, there is another major limitation to a system like this, and that is, since I'm using frozen bottles, once that melts and it becomes room temperature, this no longer has a cooling effect.
So it'll just be whatever the temperature of the room is.
Then it's just a fan.
Then you just point the fan at you when you're done, yeah.
Exactly. But what we want to do is ultimately we want to show the audience how to build a couple of cooling systems that can actually go past room temperature. I'm going to show you a few that will allow you to use a cooling medium and actually heat the medium up past room temperature and still get a cooling effect, which is what we're going to be doing. Because this is entirely passive.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is, I mean, how long did it take you to put this all together?
This was like a 10-minute project.
Yeah.
I mean, and the longest thing was me looking around the house to find the stuff. So if my superior is watching, I kind of stole the fan and the bucket. So
you guys weren't using it, right?
No, we weren't using it at all. Now let's give you a quick preview on what the next step in cooling is going to be, because this was a passive system. We wanted to show people an active system. Now you may remember this. This was like 80 episodes ago.
That's the thermocouple.
This was the thermocouple. This is a thermoelectric generator. So the idea is you heat up this side, you cool off this side, and then you actually generate power.
Right. Yeah, that was a cool episode.
It's the same principle that goes into that BioLight can stove, which is you create a fire. That fire actually generates electricity, which you then use to cool off the hot side, which will allow you to generate more power.
Right, charge your devices.
Yes, but that's not what these were designed for. These are not actually thermoelectric generators.
Really?
These are thermoelectric coolers. And we're going to be using that principle here. These are all TECs. These are 70-watt TECs. Normally, you would use this. Can you see these on the side? Yeah, normally you would use these on like a PC. You would put this on top of the CPU. You would apply 12 volts through here. One side would get extraordinarily cool, and the other side would get extraordinarily hot. And essentially, it's a heat pump. You're pushing heat from one side of the element to the other.
Okay.
And if you don't remove that heat, eventually the thing would melt, and bad things would happen.
Okay, so
we're not going to let that happen, though.
Are these relatively cheap too, or?
I think these, now they are. These were something like $3 each. I remember when I was first designing cooling systems for PCs.
Yeah.
TECs were like $50, $60, $80.
So something just like this?
Just like that. In fact, smaller than that.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 approaches. The first is the direct approach. Scientists in lab coats they've discovered that you don't actually have to cool off everything to feel cool. If you cool off strategic parts of the human body, you actually feel cooler without having to be cool. One of the parts is the back of the neck.
Okay.
If you can get cooling effect on the back of the neck, which is why sometimes having a fan on the back of your head feels so good.
Or a damp cloth.
Or a damp cloth. The other is the wrist. So what we can actually do is we can apply one of these to the wrist.
He's more machine now than man.
and electrocute ourselves, hopefully. But we do need some sort of array that will take the heat away from the element. Because
so let's get a CPU fan, right?
Exactly. Well, so you got one of those right here.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, walking around like this.
It's an elegant system.
I mean, I don't know about you, but that's going to make it hard to type.
Tell people it's a new Apple Watch.
Well, what I ended up doing was I used something like a wrist brace.
Okay.
And I have all the components built into the wrist brace. And so you put on like the power glove. It's like, yeah, look at me.
Wow, yeah, you're not a giant dork.
Good stuff. It's good stuff. But past that, we're also going to use an array of thermoelectric coolers to pump heat into something like this.
Okay.
But the nice thing about it is that we will be able to continue cooling even once that water has reached room temperature. It will just make the water hotter and hotter until eventually
it evaporates.
It evaporates, and then
then those evaporate. Yeah, then those melt.
Yeah. So we'll get there. We'll get there. What do you think?
Hey, we're experimenting.
We are experimenting. Now, you know what? While we're experimenting, let's go ahead and take a moment to thank the first sponsor of this episode of Know How. Now, hey, Brian, have you ever wanted to have, I don't know, maybe an automated house?
Absolutely.
Because we all want automated houses, right?
Yeah, to be sure.
Yeah. Now, in the past, that's always been tricky because the automation systems that are out there, although they're very cool, they don't really talk to each other.
No, and you know, every house is different, so you kind of want to put it together the way that works best for you.
Exactly, and it's always been a hassle to find a light switch from one vendor and maybe a pump from another vendor and maybe the automated sound system from a third vendor. Well, you don't have to worry about that now because SmartThings is here to make your home into a truly smart house. Now, SmartThings starts with a very simple concept. Why not become the Rosetta Stone, the translator, the piece of gear that lets every piece of automation talk to every other piece of automation? If you've dabbled with home automation in the past, you know that it can be wildly expensive to make that happen, but SmartThings makes it easy. Now, you just have a smart hub, that centerpiece that you see right there on the screen, that allows all those pieces of gear to talk to each other. And now you have a central control panel, a thing that you can control from your phone, from your tablet, both at home and while away. It works with iOS, Android, and Windows Phone. And because it's an open platform, SmartThings works just as well with its own sensors as it does with connected hardware from Dropcam, from Schlage, from Honeywell, and hundreds more, including Nest and Sonos. SmartThings is so revolutionary that it won the 2015 CES Editors Award choice for home automation. It really is so much different from everything else. It's head and shoulders above. If you're not trying SmartThings, well, you're just not being smart. Right now, SmartThings is offering our Know How audience 10% off any featured SmartThings kit when you go to smartthings.com/knowhow. That's smartthings.com/knowhow and use the offer code Know How. It's the perfect way to get started with a smart home. For 10% off and free domestic shipping, go to smartthings.com/knowhow and use the offer code Know How. That's smartthings.com/knowhow. And we thank SmartThings for their support of Know How. Hey, Brian.
What?
You thirsty?
I am getting a little thirsty.
Thirsty for beer?
Can we do that? Is it after 12 o'clock yet?
Okay, I don't drink beer, but I'm going to pretend like I do for the bit.
Dude, but before we go on to that, can you put that thing on your wrist again?
Oh,
the thermocoupler?
The thermocoupler? What are you going to do here?
With this?
Is this what you want?
I think Alex has some idea.
Just get that in there.
What is that
You're
from?
more machine than man now.
He's super cool.
Hey, Alex, aren't we running out of time?
Oh, yeah.
He's the $6 million priest.
All right, so we started an endeavor here. We're building a beer lifting system.
Now, this is a quadcopter I can appreciate.
This is a quadcopter that you can appreciate. I thought we might want to go through some of the steps that we're taking because this is a specific build. Unlike a lot of the other builds that we've done, this one is looking to do something very particular, and that is to lift as much as possible.
Right.
We don't care about handling.
Nope.
We don't care about speed. We don't care about photography. We just want a quadcopter that lifts.
Yeah. So we need big motors, which it looks like we've got here.
Well, we're going to need a few things. So I wanted to show you the process of actually designing a mission-specific quadcopter. The first thing we want to do, because we want this to lift so much, is we have to worry about weight.
Right.
Because the heavier the quadcopter is, the less cargo it can carry.
But we have to be careful because structurally it has to be strong.
It has to not collapse under its own weight.
Right.
Right. Now, the quadcopter that we built, the Know How 250, because remember, we're building a 250 class cargo carrier. It weighs about 750 grams with a battery. That's no good because even if I can get the thrust on this thing up to like 4 kilograms, I'm using almost a quarter of it just to lift the quadcopter itself. I want to get that down. So there are some practical things that we can use. First of all, the frame. So our frame right now has all these extra extensions pieces for the cage, right? Because we wanted to be able to hold the camera. We wanted to be able to hold the GPS device, the receiver. We also have these legs, and then there's also a small protective cage that goes over the top.
Right.
That's gone. So get rid of all of that.
Bare bones.
We're going to go totally bare bones. We're getting rid of the cage because we're not mounting a camera. We're also not mounting a GPS unit, so we're going to get rid of the shelf. We also don't need to worry about landing gear because it's only going to take off and land once.
Right, and the thing that is holding should be the thing that is touching the ground.
Exactly. So right there, that's dumping about 60 grams, 60 to 100 grams. So we've already lightened it from about 750 somewhere near 650.
Okay.
So that's easy, because weight is one of the easiest ways to save,
right?
Because you're just taking things off the quad that you don't need. Okay, now let's go from that to something else that can save us weight, and that's the ESCs. Now, the electronic speed controllers are what allow the motors to spin up and down, right? They take the power and they connect with our flight controller, and they'll tell them how fast they should be spinning. Well, if you take a look at this, the ESCs that we've been using, these 30 amp, we've been using them because they're crazy robust and they're incredibly powerful for their cost. So altogether, the 4 ESCs weigh about 126 grams, which that's actually a considerable amount.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to use those, I could use these. Now, these are not 30 amp, these are 20 amp, so there's not nearly as much headroom, but there's also no there's no BEC, battery eliminator circuit here. So I can get by with using these, and instead of 126 grams, I'm gonna get it down to 21 grams. So I'm saving over 100 grams here by switching from these all-purpose 30 amp to these sort of very specialized 20 amp.
And these won't blow up? They look so tiny.
They are at the limit of blowing up. So we're going to be pushing these that's why we use these, because we wanted the extra headroom.
Right.
We will have no headroom here.
Like,
I have to be very careful with how I fly this, otherwise I will blow out an ESC.
Well, this is a very specific quad. So.
Again, yeah, mission specific. We have something we want the quad to do, and we're going to sacrifice everything else, including survivability, to complete the mission.
Okay.
So already I've shaved 200 grams off the weight of the fully loaded craft. So we're down to about 550 grams here. Something else I need to do now is I need to up the power that I'm going to get from my motors and my props.
Okay.
Okay. Now this is an interesting process.
When you say interesting, though, I always get a little worried.
Because we're probably going to kill the audience. I'm really sorry if you die. It was not intended.
I think we have people sign waivers before they come in, right?
We do. Could you go to the side cam? I want to get this properly situated here. Okay, there we go. So remember this. This is a little the thrust bench that we built. Now, the nice thing about this is because of the way that I designed it, it's also going to give me a readout so I know how much power this motor is pulling, because I know if I go over 20 amps,
you're going to lose one of those ESCs. I'm going to lose an ESC,
right. Now, I tested this at home, and with
You're still alive. So.
I'm still alive, with a 6 amp, with a 6-inch prop.
Okay.
And this motor, I pulled about 920 grams of thrust. I would not do that here because I actually snapped 3 props just from the sheer thrust.
Well, thank goodness I have these glasses on.
Right, but they have no glasses, which is great because they're right in the line of the shrapnel. So I'm just going to power it up a tiny bit. We're not going to go crazy. Go ahead and go to the side view here. So, you want to hear something scary?
That sounds actually really cool.
It does. That's about 1/10 of the thrust. I'm not going to go any higher than that. Seriously, not in here. I actually had to build a new cage around the props because I was afraid.
Bulletproof glass around it.
It actually embedded, one of the props snapped and it embedded itself into 1/4-inch drywall. It just went through.
So now we realize we need to use carbon fiber props.
We need to use carbon fiber props because these flex too much, and at the top limit of their thrust, it just snaps the props.
And we're going to be using all the thrust we can muster, right?
We will be using every last and every last inch. Although that last 1/10 of the stick, I gotta, because I'm gonna run into my ESCs.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to watch it. I have it marked down. I was able to run it through the test bench, and I'm thinking at about 90% thrust, I'm gonna be generating about 800 grams of lift per motor.
Okay.
Yeah. Now that sounds good, right? Because 8 times 4, and I have 32, 3.2 kilograms of thrust. I'm gonna lose some of that because once you put 4 props next to each other, you're gonna lose a little bit of it. Not every motor and prop is gonna give you the ideal amount of thrust.
Right.
But even then, because the craft still weighs 500 plus grams, it's not gonna give me my 3 kilograms.
So what else are we gonna do?
Well, so if I can only get about 2,700 grams out of cargo carrying capacity out of a standard 250 frame, we're gonna have to do something like this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I see where you're going with this. Props on props.
Props on props, dog. Yeah.
Is that really going to generate a lot more thrust though? Like, wouldn't the prop wash?
Yeah. So you're going to lose. You're going to lose a lot of efficiency because you're essentially moving the same air twice.
Right.
But I've done a test. This frame on the top should get me an extra kilogram of thrust.
And that's worth it, because this is specific. If this was just a quad to fly, this would be madness.
This would be madness. This would be, no one would build this. This would be stupid. This would be a great way to kill yourself.
Right.
But because we just want to lift, I can get about 1,000 grams of thrust out of this. This extra frame in the motors is going to add about 100 grams. But with the 500 grams of thrust minus that 100 grams that it adds, I'll get myself about 3.1 kilograms of cargo. Which is what we want. We wanted 3 kilograms.
What if you rotated this so that...
That's what I was thinking. I actually tested that over the weekend. I tried to rotate it, thinking maybe I can get clean air.
Yeah.
A problem is the mounting points actually snapped the frame, and this frame crashed into the frame below it, and I destroyed like 8 sets of props.
Oh.
Which was awesome. It was...
Right. You weren't recording it, though, were you?
I don't record failures.
That's because you don't fail.
I actually was recording it. I'm like, oh,
sad.
I felt sad. I actually, there's a reason why there's no motors on this right now. I actually destroyed the motors.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
It was violent. It was very, very violent. Because essentially, have you ever seen a plane crash into itself?
I can't say I've seen that happen, no.
Quadcopter crashed, it ate itself.
The only thing I can think of that would be similar is that old video of like the airplane that has like 12 wings or something, and it just...
I was looking at the video afterwards, and you can actually see the props at the bottom are bending up, and the props on the top, because they were pusher props, were starting to bend down.
Oh, wow.
and then eventually they hit, and then it unbalanced it, and then it tore half the top frame off the airframe, and then the top frame just crashed down into the motors on the bottom.
I would have liked to see that, actually. I wouldn't want to be near it, but...
The sound it made, 3 security guards came over because they thought someone had like shot something on the campus.
And that's how Padre created a black hole.
I got a large boson in my backyard.
Yeah. Okay, so what do we do now?
So the next step is I'm going to finish the build over the weekend. I'm going to start doing lifts because we have to get this in by the 1st of September. That's when it's not the deadline, but the prize money starts going down from there. Right now, there are a couple of entries that are like doing 2.2 to 2.7 kilograms. I'm thinking if I can make this work long enough, yeah, and actually if I go crazy and I add a higher capacity battery, I could probably pull 4 kilograms.
If I can go crazy, I might, destroy my quad.
If I can suspend the law of physics for 10 seconds, this thing will lift so much.
You know what? If anyone could do it, I'm sure you can. So, but I want to watch, or I want to film.
I may not be here next week. I may be into intensive care.
It'll have been worth it. We need to get this beer delivered.
All right, folks, now when we come back, by popular demand, there have been people out there who have been talking about the tracking point hack that we saw at BlackHat DEF CON, right?
Yes.
And we don't want to make it out as if this is end of the world stuff. It's just an interesting hack. It was a very interesting effort by 2 security researchers to get into something that people aren't supposed to get into.
Right, and then it's kind of a link baity story.
Yeah, like,
gun gets hacked.
Who doesn't like that? But we recorded their Q&A session at BlackHat DEF CON, and we're going to show you what they actually said. So we're not going to add any hyperbole. Just listen to the words.
Yeah.
And then be afraid. Be very, very afraid.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. But before we do that, let's go ahead and thank the second sponsor of this episode of Know How. Hey, Brian, you know all this stuff we've been doing?
Yeah.
You know where you put it?
Into my knowledge?
You put it into your knowledge hole. That's right. And the best place to fill your knowledge hole is at lynda.com. Now, lynda.com is a one-stop shop, a repository for knowledge on the internet. What do I mean by repository? I mean that it's not just good if you want to learn a new skill. Let's say you want to learn how to program, or you want to learn Excel better, or let's say you want to figure out what to do with a hobby. You want to start taking pictures with quadcopters. Maybe you want to pick up a new hobby in some sort of strategic gaming. There are courses for everything that you want to learn new on lynda.com, but it's also a place to go for knowledge that you already knew, but maybe need a refresher course. Now, lynda.com is different from other spots on the internet because it's filled with professors who both know their material and can actually tell you how to do it on camera. This is not a YouTube channel, which, though I love, might have iffy production values. I mean, if you're worried about the lighting and the camera or the audio being off, you're not spending your full time on the actual material. That's what lynda.com wants to help you with. Now, if you're looking to learn creative software, you're going to want to check out lynda.com's latest courses, which include Photoshop CC 2015, One-on-One, Fundamentals, Pro Tools 12 Essential Training, Up and Running with Audacity, After Effects 2015 Essential Training, and Getting Started with InDesign. Now, at lynda.com, you can watch and learn from top experts who are passionate about learning. You can stream thousands of video courses on demand to your Android or iOS device. You can browse course transcripts. So if you have a question, you can jump straight to the part of the video that deals with that question rather than having to watch video after video after video trying to guess where your answer might be. You can also download tutorials and watch them on the go, and you can share playlists with your friends if you want them to get into your hobby or into your knowledge hole. Oh, that doesn't sound right. Now, your lynda.com membership gives you unlimited access to training on hundreds of topics, all for one low flat rate. Whether you're looking to become an expert, you're passionate about a hobby, or you just want to learn something new, I want you to visit lynda.com/knowhow and sign up for your free 10-day trial. That's lynda.com, lynda.com/knowhow. And we thank lynda.com for their support of Know-How. Hey, Bryan.
Yeah?
You think maybe we should take a trip back to BlackHat DEF CON?
Yeah, that was a good trip. That was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Hey, Alex, push that magic button.
So yeah, this is a fun story. The reason we started doing this in the first place, and I'm going to embarrass you, I'm sorry. The reason we started doing this in the first place, Runa's from Norway and has a very romanticized vision of the US. So loving all things America, right? I was like, well, we need to go to a gun show then, because it doesn't get much more America than that. So took her to a gun show, and TrackingPoint had a booth there. And we'd seen the scopes, the guns in the media. They're all over the tech blogs. They've been covered extensively. But in their booth, they had their demo going and talking about, oh, and you can connect with your phone, you can update the firmware and do all this stuff. And everyone's like, wait, you can do what with these? So she got the literature and was reading through it on the way home, and she looks at me, she's like, can we buy one and hack it? And I was like, let's do it. So that's really where it started. That was it. Yeah, so the gun we were hacking is the TrackingPoint TP750. The base rifle is a Remington 700, 308 bolt action. The scope that sits on top of it that TrackingPoint actually built is their Cascade platform. Runs Angstrom Linux. It's basically a BeagleBone Black as far as the hardware goes. So just ARM processor, 255 meg RAM. There's a 16 meg flash chip for kernels, 4 gig for file system and storage. The actual scope has a couple physical buttons to zoom in, change wind, change the mode, as well as some USB ports, power button, temperature sensor, humidity sensor, that kind of stuff. The way the system works, there's an advanced mode where you can tag your target. So you're looking through the scope, there's a little dot. You line that up on your target where you want to fire, and you press a little red button in front of the trigger. And this tags the target. The gun then calculates the ballistics to actually hit that and moves the crosshairs accordingly. So then when you pull the trigger, the gun doesn't fire until you're actually lining the crosshairs back up onto the dot that you tagged on the target, and then it fires. So it's calculating all the ballistics for you, so your first shot accuracy goes through the roof, even for somebody that's not trained in how to shoot.
So just 3 things to actually keep in mind about this research. The attacks that we have do require the wireless network on the rifle to be on, and you have to be within range of the Wi-Fi. We cannot fire remotely. We can do a lot of other things, like lock the trigger to prevent the shooter from actually firing, but we cannot fire remotely. It has a wireless network that you can connect to with your mobile phone, and they have 2 mobile apps for use with the rifle. One is called Shot View, which just allows you to see exactly what the shooter is seeing inside the scope. The other one is called TrackingPoint, and that's the app that allows you to change things like wind, temperature. You can set a passcode for the advanced mode.
In the process of poking at it, kind of through the apps and all of that, we kind of a black box test at that point. We didn't really know what we were poking at. We weren't really getting what we wanted, so we decided to tear it open. The device we actually used to dump the file system is just an eMMC to USB adapter. So that's what we ended up using to actually dump the file system. It's a little device that you can hook up the pins that associate with the actual eMMC chip, and then plug it into a computer, dump the file system that way.
So we found that the the API, when the mobile apps are communicating with the scope itself, it's completely unauthenticated. So it means that anyone who can connect to the wireless network of your rifle can use the same app to just change values while you're lining up to take a shot. We found a way to hack into the system and just communicate directly with the backend in such a way that we can feed it any value we want. We can say that the bullet weighs much more than it really does without the system complaining about this. And we also found that there's an issue with how they do software updates that allows us to create our own software update that will work on any TrackingPoint firearm that allows us to get root access on the device.
In this demo, what we're going to do is show on the left side here, it's going to be what actually happens when your normal operation. So we'll tag a target, the crosshairs will drop down, then it'll pause. It'll go to the right side and show what happens, same behavior, but with the adjusted values to make the crosshairs jump even further. So it tags the target, you see the crosshairs jump, now you're going to line up for the shot, see the second one there. The one on the left hit center target where we were aiming. The one on the right, you can see it hit the target on the left, which is about 2.5 feet away from where you were actually aiming. So that's one of the things we're able to do by adjusting the values on the back end.
It's not all that bad. TrackingPoint did actually take security into consideration when they built this product. For example, the USB ports on the rifle are disabled during boot, so they don't actually function to get onto the wireless network. There is a key. It's guessable and all of that, but you need to know the key to actually connect. The API, when you're using the mobile apps, it does validate user input. So from the mobile app, you can't say that the bullet weighs a lot more than it is, or that it's a super windy day, for example. So the mobile app does restrict how much you can do or what you can do with the rifle. And the software updates are protected with GPG. They are encrypted and signed. It's just they have a bug in how they implemented that solution. That means that we can get around it.
If I'm using my phone or a laptop with a small antenna, however long that's going to, I think the stated range is around 35 or 100 feet, somewhere in that range. If you have a bigger antenna, there was the Wi-Fi shootout not long ago where they were able to get 50 miles to an unamplified device. So theoretically, you could totally do that with this as well. As far as seeing what the shooter sees, they've got that shot view app. So if you have a good enough connection to actually stream that video to, you can absolutely see what they're saying. But again, it also still requires you being able to get on the wireless in the first place and the wireless being turned on.
So there's, once we got onto the system, so we had to open it up and then connect it to our computer to actually get to the file system. And once we were on there, we saw that you have this API that is what the mobile app is using when it's communicating with the scope. But in addition to that, there's an admin API that if you know about it, you can use it. And so by finding just the right calls, we could actually communicate with the rifle.
Given that this device is kind of the first of its kind, really, you could very much tell in the hardware where they were kind of going all in, because there was no lessons learned from somebody else. They were learning the lessons from the start. So everything's very well silk screened. So you pull it open and say, oh, TXRX, and I bet that's UART plug-in, and there it was. But that said, it was all password protected, so that still wasn't good enough. We still had to tear it apart to get actually into it.
We had to actually connect to the chip that has the file system and then to our computer to actually get to the file system. And once we were on the file system, we could then figure out some more of the vulnerabilities and put together some tools so that we could actually automate our attacks.
I have to say, hearing it from them, it's always better. Whenever the stories get out, they always get sensationalized because, well, that's what people want. They want the sensational story. But at the end of the day, all of the researchers at BlackHat and DEF CON, they're all white or gray hats. And so they're doing this because they want to expose the fact that most of us are creating these devices wrong. TrackingPoint actually did a good job. She made a point to say, look, TrackingPoint actually thought about it. Yeah. They just never thought that someone would buy a $13,000 rifle on a whim, take it apart and hook up a programmer to it. Right. But maybe they should have.
They should have, yeah, and that's why BlackHat and DEF CON exists. Well, maybe not DEF CON, but BlackHat exists so that these things come out, and then we improve the security of these things in the future.
Right.
And when you go to these sort of events, you realize just how much work people put into these things, and the amount of research that is actually what the hacking is all the research that they did to figure these things out.
Right, like the Miller-Valesec hack of Uconnect. That was remember the Jeep that they hacked? That was 2 years in the making. So this is and they're not security researchers. They're
doing this for fun.
Exactly.
Although they did like to point out, if they're doing it for real, like this was their job and they're being paid millions of dollars, they probably could have done it a lot faster.
Yeah, exactly. And they had a very good point, which is, why didn't this car manufacturer have someone who would test this?
Right.
It doesn't make sense that you would spend a lot of money in marketing a product and next to no money making sure that it's secure.
Well, and then the end result was what everybody hopes for, is that it gets fixed and the cars were being updated, and the Sprint network that had the port that was open,
6667.
They fixed that like right away, so now they can't do that hack. And I'm sure the same thing with TrackingPoint. Now that they know people are taking their scopes apart, maybe they'll think better about how people are able to exploit their things.
Yeah. Now, here on Know How, we are not going to be buying a $13,000 rifle, but...
Wait, isn't that in the budget?
No, it's still not in the budget.
Oh,
but
right.
We will be showing you some of the tools that a lot of these hackers start with, a lot of these security researchers, including one called Nmap. It is probably the most basic tool. Everybody uses it. It's what Miller and Valesec used to find out what port was open on the entertainment system. So we're going to show you how that works, and hopefully you'll start to see the connection between what you can do at home and what these security researchers do at these big conferences. Now, let's move away from security for a bit, because we want to talk about something that's near and dear to our hearts. And Brian, that's the fact that some quadcopter pilots are being jerks.
Being bad. You need to think before you fly.
Stop it. Bad. No, seriously, what we want to talk about is, we know that, especially over this summer, there have been a lot of really not so flattering stories about quadcopters and their pilots. And I think it's time for let's have, Uncle Padre and Bryan are going to sit down with you and talk a little bit about...
Have a seat and just be quiet for a moment.
Just be quiet. Just listen. I want us to talk about one story in particular, because I think it's a good encapsulation of what you can do and what you can't do and what you should do.
Right.
Specifically, and go ahead and play the first video here, Alex. Back on June 4th, a man by the name of John Thompson decided to fly his DJI Phantom 2 Vision over a house fire in upstate New York. Now, for much of the flight, he stays like this. It's a few hundred feet above the scene. He slowly circles the fire. He pans his camera. He tries to get a good shot. And, that's actually allowed. You can do this. This is not illegal. Even though that's over someone else's property, just flying there doesn't automatically mean you can't do it.
He's not interfering with anything. He should be careful not to fly directly over the house in case the drone, something happens to the drone and it falls into like the firefighter.
Because remember what was my rule number one, you always fly as if it will fall out of the sky.
Exactly.
And that means you stay away from crowds. And he's not really doing that. He's kind of, but not really. Alex, go ahead and play the second clip. About 10 minutes in, he drops down to about 70 feet or so, and he starts getting close-ups of the firefighters and the destroyed house. Now, this is starting to get sketchy. It's still not illegal. And technically, this is a public event. You have no reasonable expectation of privacy. So if you were to, like, for example, shoot this drone out of the sky, that's illegal.
Yeah.
That you actually can be held accountable for. They can actually, charge you with things. Okay. You can't actually knock an aircraft out of the sky.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, he didn't clear out. Even though one of the firefighters actually started to spray his quadcopter.
Yeah,
give him like a warning shot, like, hey, dude, get out of here. Come on. And Alex, go ahead and play that third clip. Eventually what happened was the firefighter did hit the quadcopter, and now he started to book. He started to get out of there. Now, he says that the spray damaged his quadcopter, and it caused $2,200 worth of damage, which is interesting because that particular quadcopter, I know it,
costs exactly that
about
amount.
$1,000.
Yeah.
So unless this was like some super damage that also caused emotional damage, no.
This guy sounds like a jerk.
He's kind of a jerk here. But the big story is not whether or not this guy's a jerk. It's when and where should you fly? And the first thing is safety. Don't fly it over someplace where if it falls out of the sky, it will hurt somebody. Just assume it will, because this is still untested technology. And most of us have not built redundancy into our quadcopters. In fact, on all my quadcopters except for 2 of them. I have a 6-engine quad and an 8-engine. If I lose a motor or an ESC, it will drop out of the sky.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and that's just
like
gonna happen.
most quads. Yeah.
That's like most quads. The other thing is, just because it's legal for you to do it,
Doesn't mean you should.
yeah, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
We had stories of homeowners who shot drones out of the sky. Now, those homeowners are on the hook for doing that. You can't do that. One of them was very clear. He actually shot a drone that was across the street because he said, well, it was filming into my house.
He was harassing me.
Yeah, there was no camera, so obviously he wasn't doing that. But even if there was a camera, if I sit outside of your house and I point a video camera at your home into your living room, it's your responsibility to draw the drapes. That was actually decided by the Supreme Court.
But you're still a jerk.
You're still a jerk. I'd still be a jerk for doing it, but you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy if you don't do things that a reasonable person would do to ensure your privacy.
Right.
But that's the law. And beyond the law, again, don't be that guy.
Right. Well, and it would have been one thing if he had gone to the firefighters and said, hey, like, can I shoot this while you guys are doing it? I don't want to interfere. I'll keep my distance, but I want to let you know. Like, maybe even they would be appreciative because then they could see the fire from a different angle or something like that. But yeah, just flying while they're trying to do their job like that too.
It's just silly. And then of course this summer we had the spat of quadcopters that are flying into the flight paths of air-fighting aircraft.
Right.
Firefighting
aircraft, yeah.
Which, okay, now you're not just that guy. We can say it, you're the douche.
Yeah.
Or you become the douche.
Well, and then now there's ammo-making companies jumping on the drone shooting bandwagon, and they're advertising certain shotgun shells specifically made to shoot out drones out of the sky.
It's like, wait, so is it like super special buckshot that only hits drones? Because I don't understand.
And so the article I saw about that, the 2 comments on the article, the first one was, you don't have the right to shoot anything out of the sky. Second comment is, flying over my property, I'm going to shoot whatever I want.
And the funny thing is,
that's the 2 sides.
Both of those guys are right.
Yeah.
You don't have the right to shoot my quadcopter out of the air, but 2, I shouldn't be flying my quadcopter over your property. It's just, I should be enough of a good person to say, I wouldn't like this if someone did it to me, so I'm not going to do it.
Well, you know, I always think of the paparazzi stuff too. Not that we have paparazzi here at Twit, but like, you know, the people who are in other people's faces with cameras and stuff, and then people flip out and punch them.
Well, Bryan, it's been a long episode of Know-How, so I think it's I do want to point out that Alex, if you could switch the shot really quickly, that we had 2 audience members in at the start of the show. It has multiplied.
They have grown.
There's now 6 audience members. I don't know what's happening.
See what happens when we say no one else can come? 2 is the limit.
Did we say that? We said 2.
We did.
6.
Okay, 6 is the limit.
This is now
no
the
one
most
else
we've
come.
ever had for Know-How. Congratulations. Raise your hands. You're on TV. Woo! Okay, this is our Know-How audience. And Elliot's in the middle. So go. Oh, that's not 6, but that's 5.
Oh. Jammer B, or Tony, can you sit in the audience?
Okay. All right, but folks, don't forget that you can get all of our notes. If you want to make the air cooler, if you want to figure out what we're doing for our beer build, if you want to find out more about the TrackingPoint hack, just go to our show notes. And Bryan, where do they find that?
That's at twit.tv/KH. And not only can you look at the show notes there, but you can find all the links that we might call up during the show, and easy ways to download the video or subscribe.
Yeah. Also, we have a Google Plus group. Now, we're going to be doing something very cool in the Google Plus group. I know that a lot of people have asked for some of our segments to be broken out because it makes it easier to find them. Well, we're starting to do that. You actually already did it with the Game Boy episodes. I'm breaking out all the individual quadcopter builds. We're going to make sure that they end up in the G Plus group. So subscribe to the G Plus group.
We're like 3, people away from 9,000.
No, we have 9,000.
We have 9,000?
We have like 9,004.
Bam! I always wanted to say we had over 9,000.
Wait, hold on. 1, 2, 3. It's over 9,000! Okay, sorry.
Okay.
If you don't understand that, that's not my problem. Oh, thank you, Alex.
Alex.
Okay,
but yeah, we're breaking them out, and so if you're the G Plus and YouTube, so there'll be individual segments broken. But I didn't want to upload a lot of them all at once either and spam everyone.
Everybody.
So yeah, we'll be uploading those slowly.
We'll get it in there. Don't worry about that. Also, folks, don't forget that you can find us on the Twitters. If you're not big into the G Plus groove, you can find me at twitter.com/PadreSJ.
And I am at cranky_hippo.
And our director, Hal Grumple, can be found at ANELF3.
Hal Grumple.
Hal.
He's a good guy, even though he's always trying to rush us and, you know, end the show early.
Well, Elliot told him to stop rushing us.
He did, yeah.
Demand more time.
Thank you, Elliot.
Thank you,
we
Elliot.
appreciate that.
We do. And finally, we need to thank everyone who makes this show possible. Of course, Lisa and Leo, who let us continue to do know-how. And to our incredible, talented, and now 30-year-old producer, Bryan Burnett.
Thank you, Padre.
By the way, happy birthday.
Thanks.
Did you enjoy that?
From what I remember, yeah. The first half was great. The second half might have even been better.
Fantastic. Until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballecer.
And I'm Bryan Burnett.
And now that you know how,
go do it.
go.
Go. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Shoot. We can only have 6 people in the audience. Go home.